I think very early on we saw this as being a collaborative partner. So when you need a sidekick or a sounding board or a brainstorming partner, this is going to fill a massive hole for. I'll speak for me. Then as we started to build out, well, what are these AIs? Like, do they have a face? Do they have a name? How do you talk about them? And so I know we've had some lively discussions over the past months about how do these AIs take shape. I've been much more in the camp of, I don't really like the word like humanizing them, but more of how can I treat them, with some level of importance. If I am trying to collaborate with a person, they have a name, they have a face, they have a schedule, they've got other things to do, and I need to be prepped of what I want to talk to them about. So I've been treating, the different agents specifically as like collaboration partners. I think we're birthing, I don't know, like another word, launching, like another entity type.
I'm Sarah Nagle. I've spent my career leading research and product development within some of the world's largest brands.
And I'm Chad Reynolds. I'm a serial entrepreneur and founder and CEO of Verve.
And this is AI Powered by People.
Each episode will dive into the latest AI developments and talk to an industry leader to help you better understand and utilize AI.
We'll take you inside some of the world's most famous companies and share examples of how AI is improving innovation, consumer engagement, media, and marketing.
No matter what industry you work in, we'll help you navigate one of the biggest disruptions to organizations and people today.
Hey, Chad, how are you doing?
I'm doing good. Welcome back to America.
Thank you so much. It is so good to be back. Sleeping in my own bed. Yeah, just kind of like eating. I don't think I can eat pasta for like a year. I was just overloaded. It was just too much.
There are worse things.
Yeah, totally. But yeah, I was like, I think the first thing we came back to is like Mediterranean food and sushi. Like we wanted something completely different. So, but yeah, getting back on this time zone. So today's going to be a pretty interesting episode. It's going to be a little bit different. It's going to be special because it's going to be a bit of a look back. We're going to be discussing topics that have come up many times since we started the podcast about 9 months ago. And we'll be discussing our thoughts, but also pulling clips from many of our 36 episodes. 36?
That's a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot of episodes.
Did you think we'd make it this far?
I didn't know. I was hopeful.
Yeah. I love it.
But here we are. We're going to be dropping a interesting agent this week. Lewis and Clark expedition returned to St. Louis on September 23rd, 1806, after a 28-month journey to the Pacific Ocean. So speaking of travel and adventure, we're dropping Atlas.
Hi, I'm Atlas, your passport to adventure. I've absorbed countless tales of daring expeditions and groundbreaking discoveries from history's greatest adventurers, and I'm here to share that knowledge with you. Whether you're planning a trek across continents or just a weekend hike, I can offer historical insights, practical advice, and maybe even a thrilling story or two to fuel your wanderlust. Let's explore the world together.
He can share historical insights about adventures, expeditions throughout history and up to today, practical travel and adventure advice, and stories that will fuel your wanderlust. So it can help you figure out where you want to go on vacation next.
Nice. Now, does Atlas have a toddler he travels with?
Oh, man. I hope not.
Or is he a pasta connoisseur?
No, he has an Australian accent, though.
That's not a knife. That's a knife.
But yeah,
this makes no sense.
No, he knows everything about travel. He knows the history of adventure, everything from kind of what Amelia Earhart was up to Lewis and Clark, to just kind of all the world travelers and explorers that have come up to now. So it can help you figure out how you want to spend your next adventure.
So can you share maybe a use case? So if I'm trying to plan something. So like this weekend I'll be in Louisville. Yeah. To like see one of my favorite bands. And so I'm taking all the kids too. So we got like a hotel room.
Yeah.
can I talk to, like, what would I talk to Atlas about?
You could talk to Atlas about Louisville. You could say, hey, I'm going with my family and we're going to this one show, but we also want to inject a little bit of adventure into our trip. So what happened, around the Louisville area? What could we look at? What could we check out? Who's been here? So part of it is you could share some of the history with your kids, or you could participate in some of the adventure, kind of go to the areas where different people in history went to.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just making sure I'm not going to end up on the Bourbon Trail with 3 little kids under the age of 8. So
depends on your prompts, I suppose.
That's true. That's true. You're like, where did it all go wrong? You're like, I think this is where it went wrong.
Depends on the time of day, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, you should be pretty cool. All right, let's get to the headlines. So Johnny Ive is working on an AI device startup with OpenAI. So Johnny Ive worked at Apple for many, many years. I don't even know how many years, but he left 5 years ago. But he was the one that created the aesthetic and the design and kind of how beautiful kind of the modern Macs and kind of Apple products are. He's working on a startup with Sam Altman and OpenAI. It was rumored about a year ago, but now confirmed with the New York Times. He's not sharing the name, but the goal of the project is to build a product that uses AI to create computing experience that's less socially disruptive than the iPhone. What does that mean to you? Less socially disruptive than the iPhone?
Well, I mean, so with an iPhone, or just with phones in general, right? You usually are placing them in front of, like if you sit down and have a meal, usually putting it out on the table. People are calling you, it's buzzing. I mean, it's definitely disruptive.
Can I tell you a story from travel? We'd go out to dinner, and I feel like every single time we went to dinner, we would always find a family that was like this, like not talking to each other, like passing food, just phone in front of their face. So yes, I can definitely understand why it's definitely socially disruptive.
Even during a meal?
Oh yeah, it was the weirdest thing. Every meal we went out to, we'd find some family doing that.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So let's speculate. These are always fun games. So what is the device?
I think there's some sort of I think it's a wearable. I think it's like a discrete.
Whoa. Okay.
But, yeah.
Like narrow in. Like
sure.
Where would you wear it? Is it a headband?
A sweatband. Just not socially disruptive at all. Just a sweatband that I wear everywhere. I don't know. I'm thinking kind of like jewelry. Like maybe it's like, I think kind of like the necklace has been done. Maybe, and I know that like earrings have been done. Maybe, and also rings. Maybe there's some sort of like cool thing. Like trying to think of something that's gender neutral that could be jewelry. Maybe it is. Maybe it is some sort of like just like simple kind of like necklace that is there, but like it's kind of close enough to your ears, maybe that you can still hear stuff. I don't know.
Okay.
There's earrings where you can do that.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
What do you think?
I don't know. I feel like a watch.
Yeah.
Which I know a watch has been done, but a watch like a Fitbit 9.0, something that I think could be attached to your, I guess like your body, like more biorhythms and get your heartbeat, get different things. It could go in your pocket, but I think people already have those, like, don't you ever get those like sensations in your pocket, like your phone's vibrating, but your phone's on the table and you're like, what's going on? Yeah, super weird.
So let's create a new, so basically we're going to create something new that will kind of
on your
freak people
wrist.
out.
Probably on your wrist, I would imagine.
Yeah, but I mean, the iWatch is pretty common, so maybe it'll just be a more beautiful version of it.
But it needs a makeover.
Yeah. Do you wear one?
I used to.
Yeah, me too.
I had it for like 4 months, and it just became obnoxious. It was like wearing my iPhone on my wrist. I'm like, why am I doing this? I have an iPhone.
Well, see, that's the thing too, though. So when you're saying socially disruptive, that would be the thing for me where I was like, oh, it'll be like so discreet in meetings, but it would be like, and I just like constantly look at my wrist.
Yeah.
So that's where I'm like, so maybe like a watch, but like, are you imagining a screen or no screen? Because I would say probably like, because the screen is what gets disruptive. I don't know if it
needs a screen. I think it's just, you could do it, I don't know, just like haptics. I don't know.
Yeah. Apply haptics. Cool. It would be interesting to think about haptics that are kind of like, like ringtones or whatever people add to like kind of like different people. If you had like haptics for different people.
Cool. No,
okay, I'm still going for jewelry. I think there'll be something like weird, different.
All right, what's the weirdest thing? Is it like Napoleon Dynamite, like AI tater tots you put in your pocket?
Ingestibles. I mean,
I'm
that's
not.
actually not too far away.
No.
Yeah.
I,
Yeah.
like
maybe.
if we did LASIK, yeah, it's like LASIK AI pupils.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know. We're not that far away from
We're
it.
definitely not that far away.
Yeah. Or AI eyelashes. Is that too far? Okay. In other news,
In other great guesses. I can't wait to see what they make.
so good.
So next up is Runway partners with Lionsgate. So from our last episode, we talked about AI disrupting the entertainment industry. Lionsgate and Runway have entered a first-of-its-kind partnership centered around the creation and training of new AI models, customized on Lionsgate's proprietary catalog. So it's designed to help their studios, its filmmakers, directors, and other creative talent to augment their work. And the model generates cinematic video that can be further iterated using Runway's suite of controllable tools. It will just be interesting to see what it happens with, like, some of the, the franchises that they have. And, like, Hunger Games is one of the franchises they have. Are we going to see, like, many, many more Hunger Games out there? Or, John Wick, although, we love to see Keanu Reeves in AI. So maybe that can be a possibility. But yeah, no, it's not a surprise. We're just kind of waiting for the first partnership to happen.
Yeah, I'd say this is par for the course. So any company that's creative or making products, whether it's digital, film, music, I mean, everybody's trying to come up with like what's their unique take on this and how can they create some sort of ownership in the space. So kind of creating your own model is kind of like the first place to go. It'll be interesting if like how it. I mean, the consumer is ultimately going to decide if whatever they're creating out of it is going to be meaningful and if people like it. So I think it's always up to the consumer then if they're going to go to the films and on kind of what's inbounds and out of bounds.
Yeah, what I'm looking forward to seeing is like what genre kind of like is acceptable in the space, or will like new ones, be created because of it, or like like will animation be first, or will like fantasy, like you can kind of already go there potentially with fantasy. So it'll just be interesting to see what happens, and then to see how it might roll out with others, or if there's like untouchable genres as well.
I mean, I think it can create also like new and unique experiences that could be a different channel for the for their IP.
Like
so
what?
it's kind of like, well, I mean, you had video games weren't necessarily like that big of a thing 2 decades ago, so you still had them, but you weren't creating like a Hunger Games video game.
Yeah.
I think like now you can do all those types of things, obviously, but with AI, is there a new like what's the new video game? Is it experienced, through tater tots in your pocket now? Is it your wearable? Like, are there certain things that you can go through that are creating new and unique experiences using AI? Because I think there's the visual part of like creating images and videos and doing those kind of like on the cheaper side of things. Then there's also people who want a totally different kind of experience, and what could lend itself with being trained on your models.
Yeah. Do you think this is like the option for VR to come back? Do you think you can like dust off that headset?
I mean, I would imagine that's where they would want to go.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, so there's part of this that like save time and money by creating your own model, training your own stuff, so you can generate those things. So whether it's in special effects or like, hey, I want to make Keanu look older in the scene. Do you want makeup or do you want AI to do it? Those are all kind of like more lenses. But yeah, I think it could open up actually new experiences that could be AR, VR, or maybe there's a different letter there. AIR, like, could they create something new?
I'm just imagining Air Studios. Does anyone own that yet? Because it feels like it's coming.
No, but like if you did, like, so I have Meta Ray-Bans, right?
Yep.
So let's say that I put the John Wick app on my Meta Ray-Bans, and as I'm going throughout the world, John Wick's talking to me, like he's right next to me, experiencing the world, and he's like pushing things in my ear.
He's like karate chop that.
Yeah. And this is how I get arrested. So John Wick told me to do it. So no, but I think I think there's going to start to be some really interesting things that you can do now,
Mm-hmm.
whereas before, the consumer didn't give you permission yet to kind of go there. We're kind of technology is coming out of kind of like our normal devices, just like a laptop and a phone, and now starting to open it up into new kinds of form factors.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think it's just going to be exciting what this looks like.
All right, last up in the headlines, Salesforce is all about agents at Dreamforce this year. So they've actually renamed, it feels like they've renamed Dreamforce
They did.
Agentforce. Yeah. So Dreamforce is a conference that happens in San Francisco every year, put on by Salesforce. They talk about like new technology. They bring a lot of people together to talk about it. It's just like a big, huge conference around technology. But this year it is all about agents.
Yeah, it was crazy. So if you're not familiar with Salesforce, they're one of the leading platforms out there, especially for salespeople. So as you're building your sales pipeline, you can input all of your customers, contacts, all that kind of stuff. And they also own Slack and Tableau and a couple other platforms. But it's a pretty massive deal to take your kind of signature event where, I don't know, I think they had like 50,000 people, at this thing, but
Oh yeah,
they have
huge.
hundreds of thousands of customers.
Mm-hmm.
To take your signature event and then put agent across the whole thing. So it's a pretty big signal to not just the market, but also to people everywhere that agents are the next big thing in AI. So that was one thing I think that they wanted to clarify or put out into the world and try to have some ownership around it. Whereas Google and others have definitely put us more emphasis on their LLMs and what the LLM can do. As we talked about on our pod many, many times, like the LLM is just one part of generative AI. The agent can be the wrapper or multiple kind of people in this scenario. So it was a pretty big deal, that they did this, and then they also rolled out some of their initial agents, which are primarily focused on AI agents for sales, for customer support, and those kinds of things. But one of the interesting takeaways was an interview that Mark Benioff, the CEO, had kind of around this event. It was with Bloomberg, where he essentially called Microsoft Copilot Clippy.
Companies are rolling out agents now, ServiceNow, Microsoft. How do we know this isn't just another buzzword like Copilot?
Well, I think and we all know now that Microsoft Copilot is basically the new Microsoft Clippy, that customers have not gotten value from it. These LLMs, this is like, we're selling science projects to companies, and they're tired of it. They have not gotten the value, which is why you see these customers so excited. They're coming here and they're getting immediate value.
Those are fighting words.
Yeah. So it's pretty strong words around not only like the performance that he sees, through Microsoft's Copilot, but also what the future looks like and why you would pick someone like Salesforce to build your agents on.
I'm so curious to see like what are they? I haven't seen any of their agents. They've also said that they're going to be empowering 1 billion agents with Agentforce by the end of 2025. So there's a huge commitment to the technology as part of their future strategy. I'm just I'm curious. I haven't experienced it like we've experienced other, agents with other LLMs.
I would say, a lot of it was similar, like very, very similar to our talk track from 6 months ago.
Mm-hmm.
We were building agents, talking about what they can do. A lot of our agents are focused a little bit more on insights and research and innovation. So less about, a chatbot to help you through the customer experience or customer service. So yeah, it's really just creating some ownership around the specific space around sales and customer success and using agents in that regard. It was just interesting what he had to say around Microsoft too, just the value that enterprise are seeing from Copilot. Microsoft is somewhat of a competitor to Salesforce. I think in the world of software, agents are going to be the big differentiator. Because really, when you look at what software is, it's really just an interface for your data. So is there a massive difference between me creating a database of my sales numbers or a database of past transactions, or even like past ideas. The reality is a database is a database. I mean, obviously there's kind of different wrappers around it and what it can do, but yeah, they're competitive. And I think where Microsoft has gone is to focus in on a singular co-pilot. So, as what Mr. Benioff has said, it's a, Clippy. So it's a singular agent that kind of sits next to you and is going to help you through the process. Agents are fundamentally different, where now you have hundreds and thousands of individual agents or individual co-pilots that can be specially tailored to the specific thing that you're doing. So that's why we've invested a ton into building out our whole agent platform, is we want that specificity and unique value that they can generate for you. And they can be super unique. And so that's why we see a huge future for what agents can do. It was just, I think, compelling. The reason we're talking about is it was compelling to have one of the largest tech companies in the world change their entire conference to just focus on AI agents.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's going to get it out into the world more, and people are going to be talking a lot more about agents because of it.
Yeah, I think it was a really big thing for us. So, it's just educating the market on what are these things, why are they valuable. The cool part is that we're focused on a completely different kind of part of the customer journey with what we're doing compared to Salesforce.
All right. Let's get to our segment. We've talked to people across a number of industries, and AI is one of the hottest topics in really every industry right now. And also, when we started, we weren't talking about agents. 9 months ago was a very different world. So we want to talk about a few topics, and we want to also hear from some of the folks from our last 36 episodes and kind of what they think about these topics. All right, the first topic is AI as a collaborative partner. And Chad, I know that you have definitely an opinion about this. I think I've heard you say AI is more than a tool on many occasions. Curious how, for you, this topic has evolved, from the before agents, since we started introducing agents, and to now. How do you feel about AI as a collaborative partner right now?
I think, it's been evolving. So, when we first started this podcast, we were really focused on generative AI. So just kind of asking questions, getting ideas and insights back. One of the big things was, I think very early on, we saw this as being a collaborative partner. So when you need a sidekick or a sounding board or a brainstorming partner, this is going to fill a massive hole for, I'll speak for me. Then as we started to build out, what are these AIs? Do they have a face? Do they have a name? How do you talk about them? And so I know we've had some lively discussions over the past months about how do these AIs take shape. I've been much more in the camp of, I don't really like the word humanizing them, but more of how can I treat them, with some level of importance. If I am trying to collaborate with a person, they have a name, they have a face, they have a schedule, they've got other things to do, and I need to be prepped of what I want to talk to them about. So I've been treating, the different agents specifically as collaboration partners. I think we're birthing, I don't know, another word, launching, another entity type, of how do these agents take shape and form, and we're still in the early days of it, but it's definitely more than a tool. I just don't necessarily have a word to describe what they are, because others have talked about them as being a different kind of species. Maybe I wouldn't go that far, but I think they're definitely a different entity of what we're creating, especially when you can make them autonomous.
Yeah. Would you call it a companion?
I'd say in certain aspects, they could fill the void or fill a need around companionship. Yeah.
You've definitely been bullish about your thoughts around where where this is going, and you've definitely changed my mind over time. It's taken me a little while to get there. I think I've always had like in my head, like, our consumer's going to be ready for it. But I think that, taking your point of view, it's like you need to get ahead of all of that, and they will become ready for it. They may not be ready right now, exactly right now, but they will be. And this is going to be part of their lives as they move forward.
I'll just speak individually. So I think the best version of myself is when I'm with someone else and we're ideating, we're sharing ideas and building off of one another. I think that's how I, personally improve myself, is sharing my perspective, sharing things, getting other people's perspective, and then kind of build off of that. And so I think AI is an insane, helpful, collaborative partner in that regard. I think the trick is then, can it help you create new and unique and novel ideas that weren't just like a copy paste from the internet. So I think that's kind of the next frontier as a collaborative partner, of coming up with these new and unique things that don't exist yet.
Yeah.
And so that's been the biggest compliment I think we've received from customers is, hey, we kind of went into this knowing that they would be helpful and, fun. It'd be fun, but wow, we came back with like patentable, trademarkable concepts. And so that is very valuable.
All right, let's hear from some of our past guests about what they think about AI as a collaborative partner.
I mean, it's definitely giving a different set of tools to kind of communicate. And I think folks have been used to, as in my stakeholders have been used to research insights that's come through a specific workflow over many, many years. And I think what you're kind of asking is like, how do we actually use AI, or how do we communicate the benefits of AI, or how do we communicate the outputs of AI in a way that's kind of acceptable or brings the business kind of with us? And I think it's a great question. It's honestly, it's not a straightforward one. Even this week, I was in a conversation with a stakeholder about, well, no, I really want to speak with consumers. Yeah, but we can do this in a way that is good as, right? And I think that it comes down to folks not necessarily having experience or knowledge or knowing what to do with the outcomes. And then there's a huge education piece that organizations need to invest in order to be able to communicate the benefits and the solutions of AI.
As companies, if we can integrate AI into the workflow, rather than replacing components of the workflow with it, we will all just have a better work experience, and we will all have better dialogue. And I think similarly on the consumer side too, and consumer-to-consumer interactions, when companies think about deploying AI in a way that gets the consumer more seamlessly through the lower order annoying stuff that they have to do, and more quickly to a real meaningful interaction with another human, that is going to create fantastic rewards. Like if you're staying in a hotel, there's lots of aspects of the buying, booking, pre-planning journey. If Gen AI can, which I believe it's proven in many areas it can reduce friction and create more seamlessness across all of those other touch points, for example, booking, check-in, and fact gathering, and all of that kind of stuff, get you quicker to that amazing general manager or that amazing concierge or that amazing service professional where you can have an elevated conversation. That, I think, is really, really exciting for me.
And there might be times where they're on your platform, and there might be times where they're talking to your agents directly, but it should feel a lot like collaborators, but with more transparency. And I think that transparency around the collaboration is really the big nuance there. So if I'm going to be working on a strategy with my teammates, then, if they make a comment and they say, we shouldn't probably do this, or, I have some concerns around this, you can always just go ask them their thoughts, and you don't necessarily need that in a document. But when I embed my AI agent into that, then I need it to interact in the way that they would expect that interaction to happen. Just, we want to take advantage of their prior knowledge and, just their behaviors. I'm used to commenting on things. I'm used to chatting with people. I'm used to just seeing my teammates edit stuff and leave notes for me. That's what we do in those places, right? And it should just feel like, a distant coworker who's working behind the scenes, you're seeing the outcomes of it. You're having a way to interact with it. If you see something you don't necessarily understand, you can click the little explain button. You can see their logic and why they did that, where they got their information from. That's the important thing right there. Because one, they do amazing things when we do work with them right, but people aren't going to innately trust them because it's the same thing with self-driving cars. It's like, I want to hold the steering wheel. I want to make sure I don't crash into a wall. So having that explainability, but then having it in the places where there it exists. The flip side to that is don't assume that the way you did things before is the way you should be doing them with this thing. It's a new medium in a lot of ways. And processes were often, made the way they were made because we needed humans to do certain things and we could automate certain things. But now when we relook at those processes and we think, well, actually I can automate 100% of this, or I can automate 99% of this, then you have to ask yourself, did that first process that I have, which was made for humans, is that still the same process that I have for my AI, right? And then that gets you into that situation where if you're able to answer those questions, then you can also answer the bigger upcoming question is, how does my AI interact with other AI? Because that is a platform in itself.
All right, the next topic is AI and education. We've had a few teachers on and people in a number of types of education. I would love to hear what you think about AI and education and where it's going.
First, I'm really impressed by the guests we had on who are teaching our kids. First off, the amount of testing and I guess experiments that they're running with, like, how can AI be used by students is impressive. I think it's going to strengthen kids, and even like us, strengthen the way we approach problems and systems thinking. So I know, just over the past year, we've had to kind of change how we solve problems. So just kind of like ask a question, get an answer. It started to bring up this idea of like, well, who would I ask the question to? And, could I generate or create a collaboration partner that I could learn from? I mean, it's like spinning up a new teacher or an expert.
Or like a tutor or something.
Yeah. In seconds.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a new phenomenon that I'd say is new for us. It definitely hasn't reached mainstream yet. No. But when you start to think like that, of who do I need to be around to help me solve this problem? What kinds of questions should I be asking to get to an answer? And then when I have the answer, what should I do with it? And I think there's so many different impressive things that can be happening within our education system, from empowering, educators to create, different agents and AI tools to help people, move through that process. But the biggest thing, I think, is just the increase in critical thinking, problem solving, and then systems thinking, which I think are going to be strengths of our population over the next 5 years. Mm-hmm. So, do you need to be skilled in math and storytelling? For sure. But I think some of these new things around like systems thinking, I think is going to be a growth area for us.
The part that I am most impressed about is the idea of thinking about individualized education. I grew up with my mom as a teacher, and I've been around a lot of teachers growing up. But the ability for the public school system to now be able to individualize education, meaning that a teacher doesn't have to spend their whole weekend creating all these plans for all these different kids. They can use a platform to be able to help them create programs for all the kids in the class, and also additionally know that like Chad likes Spider-Man and Sarah likes unicorns, and incorporating that into the education. So it's not only, reaching me at my level, but it's also exciting for me at the same time. So it makes me engaged, but it gives the teacher back more thinking time, strategy time, like thinking about like mental health and not just thinking about, what's happening, are they kind of reaching the certain testing scores. But so I think that is really fascinating, because you only find that individualized education in some, in private schools or, smaller schools, school class sizes. So I think that's really cool to see it. When we talked to the superintendent of schools, he talked about that. But to see that at within the public school system, I think is going to be really powerful. And I would love to see that kind of spread across our system.
I think AI as an object is really interesting, especially when it comes to education, of having something on your desk that you could talk to as opposed to disappearing into a screen. And I know, a lot of people have some very, specific opinions around screens, especially in schools. And so I think there's, we all want our kids, I would imagine, to be great at expressing themselves verbally and communicating ideas and telling stories and, moving their friends forward. And all that comes through speech. Yeah. And so I think the next wave of AI tools will really empower people to speak.
Now we're going to hear from some folks from our previous episodes about AI and education.
Our teachers have been providing feedback forever, but this expedites the opportunity for now in the classroom. The students can get this kind of personalized feedback, and then in the classroom, the teacher can have students share their perspective out loud. It may have taken a week to do that in the past, to get to that point where the teacher has provided feedback, the student has acted upon that feedback, updated their essays accordingly. So now they're able to get to, the ultimate goal of, let's say, Bloom's taxonomy of synthesizing and analyzing and evaluating information and having those conversations in the classroom. So I see that happening. Again, it feels like it's happening today, but certainly tomorrow. And you used to use the word tomorrow, like in a year or two. This is like literally tomorrow. It's game changing. And so I do believe that our teachers who are understanding how to use these tools in a way to have students, develop the deepest understanding of the content more quickly are going to be doing such a service to our kids, because they'll be able to get to those much richer, in-depth conversations and debates, which is really, again, that human differentiator, right? Not just rote memorization, deeper conversation, debate, perspective learning, all of that.
I would love students to get better and better at understanding what is true and what is not true. So I would have said that before with the rise of the internet and social media, but I'd say it's even more true now. How do you assess the accuracy of outputs, of digital outputs? Because now Gen AI is making it easier and easier to fake, and so you to get better and better at that. I also, like more specific to Gen AI, would get better and better at prompting, at learning how to use these tools. And as everybody knows, Gen AI is an amazing homework cheater. It's effectively undetectable and can solve any K through 12 assignment. So I'm not saying this naively. Schools have a really hard challenge of figuring out how to genuinely explain and encourage and require students to do the work themselves when it calls for doing the work themselves, and to learn how to use those tools to advance their work in other situations. I am not an educator. I am not smart enough to know how to do that. But the notion, just as a simple example, it would be crazy to not have high school students, middle school students use tools like Perplexity for research that name sources. Like, I don't know why you would start anywhere else, because then you can go look at the sources yourself and then decide their accuracy, etc. And so research, of course, and I'm talking to an expert, but certainly from my amateur perspective, that is radically changing. And while there's some skills remain the same, it is appropriate to teach kids how to start using those tools in the right way.
Think of education, how AI can actually really help people learn remotely, and the access that it will give to people, to learn, and teach themselves or complement the teaching that they get, remotely. That part is really, really exciting. Will that really replace, great, schools and teachers? I don't know, but at least it's gonna help people in a really powerful way.
All right. Next topic is AI and creativity. We've talked about creativity quite a bit, and we've had some folks on that have talked about it as well. I would love to hear what you think about AI and creativity and where it's going.
Honestly, I thought that creativity would, I don't know, go through a transformation with AI. And I don't think that anymore.
Why not?
I think, well, I thought that AI would make me more creative, and I wouldn't necessarily call it creative. It's definitely helping me get ideas out faster.
Mm-hmm.
And now I can take kind of a loose idea I have and then visualize it really fast, which are great to kind of accelerate or amplify the creative process. I don't know if it's necessarily making me more creative. I can cover more ground. So I think those things are really, really interesting. But I don't know if it's had the impact just yet on creative tools or creative outputs. So I'm still kind of in a wait and see in regard to creativity, even though I thought I'd be starting, when I started the year, I was thinking, you have, great creative tools out there, design tools out there, which could help you create ads and videos and I don't know, I'm just not feeling it as much.
Is it that you don't want to create, like, is it about like the actual creation of content that you were expecting?
I was thinking it was going to, or just ways what I could create with it. And maybe I'm loosely tying like creativity to the outputs, but that's what I'm kind of doing. I think it's still early, and so AI is getting incorporated into design tools and like Canva and Adobe's suite and all those kinds of things. But I'm still kind of lost on some of the inputs. Like if it's text and inpainting and brushes and say, hey, make this look like this other, like apply a filter to it so it looks more like anime.
Mm-hmm.
Sure, it helps me do those faster, but are those things that I should be doing? I don't know. Like I want to have, again, back to kind of like the sounding board or collaborative partner. I want to have an AI that's like looking at what I'm doing and giving me some other prompts of like, well, what if you did this? What if you applied this other thing? So I'm kind of waiting on those kinds of features, I think, to really truly feel like I'm a more creative person.
Well, let's hear what some of our previous guests have to say about AI and creativity.
There's lots of risks and benefits of AI in creative fields. And, if you're in a creative leadership position, you're sort of taking all of that in and wondering, like, how should I move forward? I want to create great work. I want my team to thrive, and I want the organization that I work for to thrive as well. So in order to answer this question of, how should creative leaders be moving forward in this age of AI, I actually choose to kind of zoom out and look at all of the different AI tools that are available today, of which there are at least tens of thousands, if not higher than that. And if you do that, you'll notice a very common pattern, which is that they're all using the same word to describe their value, which is the word assistant. And it's by far the most common metaphor I think that we have for describing the value of AI. It's this sort of helpful delegate that can make us be efficient and productive. And true, very true, in the context of creativity, I'm actually not sure how helpful that framing of AI is, because in creative fields, effort and output aren't necessarily linked. So it doesn't matter how long it takes you to make something. It matters if what you make is good. I suggest that when we talk about AI and creativity, we fire the assistant metaphor and move the conversation away from efficiency and move the conversation towards quality. What makes something creative good is that people connect with it. And good creative work connects with a lot of people for a lot of different reasons. And great creative work, like seminal creative work, creates with so many people for so many different reasons.
There are independent filmmakers who are able to do things now with AI that they would have never been able to do because they didn't have the resources and they didn't have the capital to do it. But now their film can have scenes that look like it's in Paris without having the budget of flying and shooting in Paris, right? So for indie filmmakers, indie creators, even influencers and content creators, you're seeing their capabilities of the types, the quality and the quantity of content that they're able to put out there is, they have more resources and more capabilities than they've had ever before.
The ability to create, instead of having to have a full-scale studio, or if you're making films, or if you're creating animations, or if if you're a small design studio, or you want to become a designer and learn these things, you now have kind of the same weight and scale as some of the big ones, or the barrier to entry lowers again, right? The ability to try, experiment, and test. I think we'll see probably some interesting intersections and transformations of industries and approaches to creativity and building and making, and it's an evolution. I'm just encouraged by it.
Okay, last topic is AI and the future of work. And this is something that has come up time and time again. People are scared. They're worried about their companies, their jobs, that AI is going to take it over. What's your take on this? And what would you say to folks that are worried about this?
Well, I'd say some of the worry is healthy, in that the only way things change is that, you need some driver, some motivation around it. I think the curious ones who are a little bit more aggressive at looking at different tools and kind of looking at what they're doing, and then asking questions like, why am I doing this? And then looking for potential ways to solve it or look at it in a completely different way, are going to be ahead of the game. And that's just more of a human trait than specifically about work. But when it comes to incorporating AI in your work, I think you're going to see some productivity gains out of the gate. But, again, it goes back to kind of systems thinking, or just having these superpowers where you can explore different scenarios all at the same time. If you want to get better at your job, if you want to get better at the solutions you're creating, AI has to be a part of your entire capability and toolbox. So I'm bought in clearly on that. This has to be a part of the future work. I think you're going to start to look at the agents that you're creating as a partner. And I know that sounds weird, but I think you're going to have to. You have platforms out there like a Copilot that is kind of this singular thing that's off to the side, again, which is good for summarizing a business document. But if your work touches people, if it touches patients, if it touches consumers, you're going to have to adopt these tools to collaborate with as many people as you can.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So I know with us, inclusivity of including so many people and so many voices into your work, I don't know, it's inspiring, it's motivating that I'm building a product that can help millions and millions of people. I think anybody in those types of jobs that are creating products or services, you want to chat with as many people as possible. And so I think AI gives you the opportunity both internally and also externally to do that. Mm-hmm. And that feels like the future.
It's like AI or die. Are we saying that? And now let's hear from some folks from previous episodes about what they think about AI and the future of work.
Well, yeah, I think, it was interesting. I was watching an interview of Sam Altman the other day, and he said, I forget who the interviewer was, but he said, it's interesting. Someone asked me what will be the jobs that are created in the next 10 years, because of AI. And he said, it's interesting because everyone always asks which will be the first jobs to go, but very few people think about the jobs that will be created. And he was like, obviously, I can't, predict with a crystal ball, but he said, my suspicion is basically jobs focused on in-person experiences and events, right? And we've kind of seen this already. I think if you think back to when the internet first came about, a lot of people kind of predicted it was the death of distance, and you could be anywhere, right? In the UK, you could be in a hut on a beach in Scotland, or you could be working from a kind of remote part of the US, because distance was collapsed and it didn't matter, right? Why would you pay New York rents, right? When or wherever, like San Francisco rents? And of course, like the exact opposite has happened, right? And basically like every tier one city in the world for the last 25, 30 years has been on a kind of complete upward tear, right? Because, technology, the reality is it's done the exact opposite, right? It's kind of actually made it more important to be closer together.
Coding has always kind of been in my DNA in my career in education, and in HopHog, like I know I keep saying this, but we have a superstar cohort of teachers who have helped to build for us a coding program that it's teaching kids Python, Java. We have local hackathons on Long Island. We have a partner, Kidoyo, that we love because of their perspective on protecting data and teaching kids these skills in safe environments. So we're the proud winners of local hackathons here in HopHog. And so I do believe, like we are, and there's excitement in that program. There's some thinking out there, right, that even coders will be replaced in the future with AI. I don't know that answer, but I know that you're going to need to know how to code AI. So, and coding to me is not just about coding, it's about teaching kids about logic and finding patterns and reasoning, right? Mathematical reasoning. So to me, those are the greater skills that we're, again, building with our kids. So yeah, I listen, I think in the future we'll need AI engineers. We don't know what all the careers of tomorrow will be. Neither did educators 20 years ago before, let's say, social media took over, right? So I think the key is to always prepare kids with critical thinking aptitude, decision-making, self-awareness, understanding perspectives of others, vetting data, vetting information. Those are kind of, threaded through any career, right?
A lot of the business world doesn't understand how to analyze, to even realize what kind of talent they need, let alone how do you find that expertise in people, then to qualify which person and how do you gauge whether they're right, whether they want to work with your company. And in all the years of doing recruitment and, decades of it, we started to realize that most people we meet in this space are so incredibly gifted and talented, so multifaceted. Most people are so, we find more than often overqualified for the work. And we started to realize that as we kind of codified a method to teach employers and businesses how to understand this kind of talent, we started to realize that more than anything, it's the individuals themselves. We had professionals that would come to us and say, well, I have so many opportunities to choose from. I don't know how to choose which opportunities to take. They could, land new jobs, earn more money, get a different title, pivot to this space or that. But we found people were still unhappy with the work they were doing. And it didn't matter how much more they were building on new skills and capabilities. We were finding people that were just still feeling lost, even though they were making achievements in their lives. And so people started reaching out to us saying, like, help me figure out how to make these choices. And that's where our career coaching, we call it career strategies, comes in, because we realized no matter where you take your career, people need to understand how to make sense of the work that they're doing, how to realize how much it makes sense for themselves.
All right. If you had one prediction for the next year, so we've had, we started this 9 months ago. What do you see for the next 9 months if you had one prediction?
I think we're going to start to see the first physical object, whether you carried it around like on your person or it's in your space, that starts to understand you and the context and your settings and provides immense value. I think we've seen some kind of glimpses of this that have felt very much so like a pet rock. Or
you're gonna hold up that yellow dog.
I mean, maybe, but I think there's going to be, some tech company that starts to make headway when it comes to a physical good that has AI embedded into it, that isn't, it isn't a novelty. I don't know if it's going to be Meta Ray-Bans. I don't know if it's going to be a completely new thing, but I think we're going to see something that breaks through.
All right, as our producer Steve always says, more to come. Well, that's going to do it for this episode of AI Powered by People. The show is produced by Steve Berkowitz and brought to you by Verve. Thanks for listening. We'll be back next Tuesday.